From Nutrien Ag Solutions, I'm Senior Meteorologist Andrew Pritchard with your Canadian Prairie weather story for Monday, March 25th, 2024. We'll start off looking at the big picture here. We've got a big winter storm that is just missing the prairie here off to the south and to the east. Blizzard warnings, winter storm warnings all the way from the southern U.S. into the Great Lakes, only far southeastern Manitoba really picking up some of the precipitation from this one. Again, a near miss with this rather high impact storm. Severe weather in the warm sector of that one across parts of the Midwest and the southern United States. Light disorganized precipitation chances across the prairie this week. It's not going to be completely dry, but again, the snow will mostly be in disorganized light amounts as we go through the next 5 to 7 days. Temperatures trend a little bit warmer. This will be felt most significantly in the east. I put Winnipeg here showing the next 10 days with that warm up as we head into the weekend. Areas that picked up some snow over the last couple of days, over the last week or so across parts of Alberta and then southwestern Saskatchewan. The warm up going to be a little more muted in these areas as we start to melt some of that snowpack. So looking at the infrared satellite picture here as we get started on Monday morning, March 25th, you see the big cyclonic storm system here across the central United States. Again, on the cold side of the storm, heavy snow. On the warm side, we've got the chance for severe weather, damaging winds, and tornadoes across the southern U.S. and parts of the Midwest, and then again across the prairie here. Pretty quiet as we're between storm systems. As I showed you there, really expansive storm system. This is about 1,000 miles worth of winter storm and blizzard warnings. Then I mentioned that severe weather risk here in the warm sector. Of course, this one lifting north like we had talked about a week ago, but lifting north with that storm track just about 100 miles too far off to the east for us to benefit across parts of southern Manitoba and the Winnipeg areas we talked about might be a possibility about a week ago today. Now looking at the radar across the Canadian Prairie, again, quiet in most corners, maybe some flurries between Calgary and Red Deer, maybe some very light snow falling in far southern portions of Manitoba. Those temperatures quite cold, anywhere from -5 to -15 as you make your way across most corners of the prairie. Now looking at last week's precipitation, again, much of that falling from parts of western into southern Alberta, far southwestern Saskatchewan, picking up on some of that. Edmonton down into southwestern Saskatchewan, generally on the drier side. You had to get on the west side of kind of a Red Deer to Lethbridge line before you started getting into those higher amounts, anywhere from 15 to 25 millimeters of precipitation across much of this area. We'll take a little bit of a closer look here where some of that heavier precipitation fell. And then while we kind of miss a lot of the prairie on these maps, I wish they would include one for the prairie. The high resolution here is kind of nice. Snow depth on the left, snow equivalent, snow water equivalent. So if we took all the snow that we have on the ground and melted it down to liquid precipitation, how much would there be? I'll draw the boundaries here. This is Alberta here across this part of the imagery. So what you're seeing there is, Calgary down toward Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, shout out if I'm wrong here, but interpreting the data here, since I'm about 1,000 miles away from here, we've got anywhere from 2 to 8 inches of snow on the ground across this area. And then as we look at that snow water equivalent, anywhere from maybe a half a centimeter to upwards of maybe 2, 3, 4 centimeters worth of liquid to be melted into the soil there. So certainly not, a great day or that we need to throw a parade for here. Not going to really put a huge dent in the drought situation across the area, but certainly better than nothing to get a little snow there to melt that moisture down into the top layer of the soil. And then expanding here, I know a lot of this, again, focused on the U.S. You can pick out Alberta here, Saskatchewan, and then Manitoba, looking at the current snowpack across much of the prairie. A lot of it's focused on Alberta now and far southwestern portions of Saskatchewan. Over the next 7 days, the European ensemble here, again, it's an active pattern, but we talked about much of the activity staying just south of the prairie at this point. Here's the storm system that is lifting through the area here. You see these little corridors of heavy precipitation, and then as you find the Canadian Prairie just kind of in between here, we'll start to reset the pattern as we get into the first week of April, kind of into maybe April 5th through 10th, and that's when I think we'll open the door back to more organized precipitation chances across the Canadian Prairie. Your next week of snowfall verbatim from the European model. Again, here's the heavier corridor that's falling over the next 24 to 48 hours. Here's where you see it's not a completely dry week across the prairie, but we're talking about very light, insignificant amounts. Scattered areas here picking up a couple of inches of snow over the next 7 days. This is the jet stream background state as we get started here, March 25th. We've got this big trough across really the western portions of the U.S. into the Canadian Prairie, but you see the deeper part, the more intense part of the trough way down here across the southern U.S. That's where we've got that severe weather risk here, the winter storm impacts a little bit closer to the track of the low. And then up here, while we're feeling the impacts from that trough, the colder air, we just don't have the upper level support for really intense precipitation across this area. Now, Now, as we animate the pattern, it continues to move along. This is not a blocked up pattern. That's good. We continue to see variety, and you can kind of see things just reset. I'll go ahead and step through time with this one. This is the big trough this week. We'll see another system that really kind of dips way south into northern Mexico, kind of a, not a real proper trough ejection with this one, although we will see another round of heavier precipitation across parts of the southern and southeastern U.S. with that. It's as we get into, again, as I said, April 5th through 10th, that's when we start to see kind of the pattern reset. We get another trough that digs in here, and we'll get another opportunity to bring some storm systems in here, maybe impacting the prairie with some precipitation. Not giving you a guarantee here, but this is just kind of where I'm looking for the next chance between April 5th and April 10th. So verbatim, here is the European model. I focused on the US and Canada here just so we can get the whole picture, again, with the big storm that we get started off with here that's impacting parts of the upper Midwest, just south of the Canadian prairie. This one gets out of here. This would be Tuesday. This is getting into Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and now into, this will be Thursday morning. And this is when we start to see some of these disorganized systems kind of in between troughs that start to bring some of that disorganized snow into the prairie. This would be Thursday night into Friday night, Saturday. It's really that late Thursday into Friday, Saturday time frame. This is getting into early next week now, Monday. This will be Tuesday, April 2nd, getting into Wednesday, April 3rd now. Now you're starting to see the models start to throw out a more organized storm system, trying to push into the prairie here. This one taking a northerly track that brings even some, liquid precipitation into the prairie. Now, we'll see what it looks like as we get to next week. I'll have time to talk about this because we're talking April 3rd and 4th, Wednesday, Thursday of next week. We'll have a chance to talk on Monday before any of this happens, but this is kind of a clue or a little bit of a tease here at, when the pattern starts to open back up. Again, as we get to the other side of April 4th and 5th, probably in the April 5th to 10th time frame. The next 10 days, verbatim, total precipitation, again, across the prairie. You see it's not completely dry, but it is certainly not like we're seeing here across portions of the central and southern United States with the heavier precipitation. We're talking about anywhere from a trace to maybe, 5 to upwards of 10, maybe 15 millimeters of precipitation on the high side over the next 7 days. Smoothed out, looking at the European ensemble. Again, you see the heavier precipitation focused across this area, the central and eastern U.S. Here across the prairie, we are just kind of in between this week. As we get into week 2, this is when I mentioned we'll start to get another trough developing across portions of the western U.S., maybe getting us into another period of, upper level support for some heavier precipitation across the prairie. Now, as you can see, of course, the stronger flow as forecast this time of year here with this, fading El Nino, the stronger subtropical jet, the heavier precipitation as we see on the next map, going to be focused across that same region here, parts of the Midwest, the southern and the eastern United States. But you start to see things kind of opening back up, some higher amounts starting to appear here across the prairie. We at least get kind of closer back to an area of organized flow. So April 5th to 10th, maybe starting to talk about more in the way of an organized storm system or two impacting the prairie, bringing back those chances for moisture. Till we get to that point, though, it's going to be rather quiet with just light chances for snow across the prairie. Those temperatures will moderate some as we head into the end of the week and the weekend, some of parts of next week. But if we do get another significant trough developing across this region, I wouldn't be surprised to see those temperatures lean a little bit colder, at least across parts of southern Alberta, southwestern Saskatchewan here. So some warm-ups involved, no real evidence of a significant cool down over the next 2 weeks. You see those temperatures here, a bit erratic, jumping around a bit in Calgary. Over the next 5 or 10 days, we get a little bit warmer as we get to the other side of the weekend. Again, it's going to take some time to melt some of the snow on the ground. Edmonton, you see the warm-up heading into the end of the week and early next week as well. Saskatoon, here is Regina, and then we already teased you with Winnipeg's temperature forecast here, warming up as we head into the end of the week and to start off early next week. Have a wonderful week. I will talk to you again on the first Monday of April.